doing great, Zach. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Thank you for coming on. And I was watching the game last night on TNT, and the great Marv Albert was wondering, since it was close to Patriots Day and they just finished up the Boston Marathon with the Kenyan guy winning the whole thing, and they said, imagine what Rajon Rondo would have done in the Boston Marathon. Do you believe Doc Rivers will ever let his star point guard go run in the marathon, and how will he fare?
About 100 yards at a time. I take Rondo for those first 100 to 150 yards. After that, I don't think Doc Rivers wants any of his players doing anything. You can't afford to have any more injuries as we get to this point of the year. So I think he would like to have them home playing chess or checkers instead.
Well, last night, Carmelo Anthony had one of the best individual performances I've ever seen, putting up 42 points. How did the Celtics look to contain Carmelo Anthony in Game 3 as like they did in Game 1?
Give him the wrong directions to the arena would be the first way that would consider going. That was epic, Zach. That's what, you see one of those games once every 5 or 10 years where someone, as it's going on, you're going to be saying, hey, remember 20 years ago, remember that night Carmelo went crazy. But with one thing we know about NBA history, it's kind of funny, is that usually players that have games like that end up being on the losing side. Think of LeBron in Game 7 a couple of years ago, and there was a great stat this year. I think 10 guys had that was the 9th or 10th time somebody had 32 points or more against the Celtics this year, and 8 out of those 9 times, the Celtics won the game anyway. The Derrick Rose game in Chicago was the only one that was an exception to that. And I'll tell you something, this is probably scarier for Celtic fans. I thought the defense on Carmelo was better last night than it was in Game 1. That's how good Carmelo was.
Now, down the stretch in the final minute, they double-team Carmelo in Game 3. Do you think Doc Rivers will put more double-team pressure on the star shooting forward?
Probably not. And the reason is because that you would expect Chauncey Billups and Amari Stoudemire certainly to be back for Friday, and that changes everything. The thought was that Carmelo was so hot, you had to double team. Doc Rivers, like a lot of coaches, you don't want to do it because we saw what happened. As a result, one of the worst rebounding teams in the NBA, the Knicks, were able to run amok on the glass and get any rebounds they want because the Celtics were throwing 2 guys at Carmelo 25 feet away from the basket, and that's why New York got 20 offensive rebounds in the game. So that was a necessary evil last night because Carmelo was having one of the greatest games of his 8-year career.
Now, being close to courtside and being in the Garden last night, what was the feel around that place once Amari Stoudemire exited the game?
I think Boston sometimes the fans can be so astute and so smart to the game that there was almost a feeling like, because that's when the bad stuff happens. There was a series of games this year, and it's ironic because Carmelo Anthony missed the game when Denver came in early in the year. But the Celtics and fans saw this a lot. Kevin Durant missed the game in Oklahoma, and they played great that one night without him and were able to beat the Celtics. Houston came in, and they didn't have Kevin Martin, and they were able to win the game. So it is not uncommon for teams over a very short period of time, especially one game, to actually play better without their best player. 3 years ago, Kevin Garnett was the Celtics' best player in the championship season, and they had that 2 or 3 week run without him, and the Celtics won. I think they won 7 out of 9 or 5 out of 7. They won a bunch of games without Kevin Garnett. So you can always go a short period of time without a star player, and I think fans sort of recognize that. The other part of that, Zach, is that Carmelo Anthony is used to being that kind of player. He's had difficulty adjusting to being one of 3 stars. When he became the only star again, he was able to flash back to the way he played at Denver, and it was probably more comfortable for him. The Knicks have been better when one of those guys, Carmelo or Amari, has been out of the game over the last few weeks than they've been when they're both still learning how to play together.
We're talking to Sean Grande, Celtics play-by-play voice for Sports Radio 850 WEEI. And Sean, what are you hearing? What's the latest on Amari Stoudemire and Chauncey Billups' health for Game 3?
I think that Amari is probably more likely to play. When you have, this is very rare during a season, and it's even rarer during a playoff series, that you have what you call a true day off today. Today is a day where there's no game tomorrow. And when you have a 72-hour gap in between games, it means a couple things. It's good for the injured players because it's an extra day to rest, but it's not great if you want information because regardless of the fact that, Shaq showed a slight improvement today and Amari Stoudemire had a day to rest, in theory they're closer, but we won't really know anything until the 2 teams get on the practice floor tomorrow and then even more so shoot around on Friday morning.
Now, the Celtics got a few home calls in Game 1. Now you go over to Madison Square Garden. Do you believe that changes the thought process here of the Boston Celtics players, knowing that they did get an easy offensive foul call in Game 1?
I think that if you put yourself into a close game in boxing, they say you don't want to leave it in the hands of the judges when you're in a championship fight. If you're not the champion, that you really have to win the title. Similarly, in the NBA, the road team usually has to win. It's not unusual for the narrow games to go against the road team, and there were a couple of calls. There were a bunch of calls either way. Obviously, at the end of the game, the Kevin Garnett play. Did he shift his feet? Tony Douglas trip over him. Basically, calls that you're not probably going to get calls made at that point of a playoff game that you would in the middle of a regular season game, not to mention the fact the Celtics had about 8 players on the floor at the end of Game 1 because everybody assumed that the Knicks had a timeout left, and they didn't. That said, I think if the games are close, the Celtics can't expect to go down to the wire again. I think one of these two games for the Celtics, in terms of making a statement, in terms of getting what they need, they don't just need to win the series. They need to win the series in 5 games if they're going to be able to get some rest before a showdown with Miami, with the Heat looking as strong as they look. So I think the Celtics need to do what they did 2 years ago in Chicago in Game 3 and last year in Miami in Game 3, and that's either score a knockout blowout win like they did in Chicago, or find a way to get one of these games. And if you get the third one, all of a sudden you're putting all kinds of pressure on New York to do what's never been done.
I have a feeling that Paul Pierce loves to play in the Garden. Does that play into favor going to Games 3 and 4 here?
That's a great question, Zach, because the Celtics have Madison Square Garden can be the biggest home court advantage in the NBA, and it could also play against the Knicks, as it has. And it plays against them on two different ways. One, if the Knicks aren't playing well, the crowd is very savvy and will turn on them. That's not going to happen Friday night because it's going to be bedlam. But the other element of Madison Square Garden is that it is the biggest stage in the game. It's the stage in which, as my partner Cedric Maxwell likes to say, the alpha males, they come out on that stage, Madison Square Garden. So sometimes there are players who don't like to play in Boston. They don't like to play in New York. They don't have that thick skin to play, and they struggle. The Celtics have a whole roster full of players who play better at Madison Square Garden. Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, Kevin Garnett, guys who love the big stage and have always played well there. And it is not a coincidence that even though over the last 10 years the Celtics have had some really good teams and some teams that haven't been that good, they have still dominated in New York. And the Celtics stats, I think the numbers are 16 and 4 in the last 20 games at Madison Square Garden, and that is a staggering winning percentage to have on the road.
Talk about how important it is for Rajon Rondo to be back to a full percentage of health, because down the stretch, the Celtics looked a little lost. They weren't playing as great as they were during the course of the regular season. Now you have your catalyst back here in Rajon Rondo.
Everybody talked about when the Celtics met Detroit 3 years ago in the Eastern Conference Finals, and Rondo was matched up with Chauncey Billups, that all the Celtics had to do there was keep that matchup fairly close. They were so good at the other positions that you had a second-year point guard. If he could just stay with Chauncey Billups, and the same thing with Derek Fisher in the finals, that it would be fine. It's the opposite situation against New York. Rondo has to, as he did last night against Tony Douglas, Rondo has to dominate this matchup. It may not be fair, but it's the way it goes. If you got Carmelo Anthony and Amari Stoudemire there, that's a lot for Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett to deal with. You can neutralize those matchups, but the Celtics, to beat a team like New York and to beat them in 5 games, they must have a dominant performance at the point guard spot like they got from Rondo last night. And the number to watch, it's not his points, it's not his assists. You show me how many times Rondo got to the free throw line in any one game, and that's the best indication of Rondo's success and the Celtics winning if that number is high.
Now he's one of the top 5 point guards in the league. He's a hell of a player. He gets to the basket, all the things you were saying, but why can't he make free throws? It's absurd. The guy only made 96 free throws on the year.
And, well, it's even more absurd when there's a player who can make jump shots that struggles to the free throw line. But Rondo obviously is not a great jump shooter. It's an issue with his game. My problem, and the reason I mentioned free throw attempts is, well, I would prefer that Rondo shoot 90% from the line. That's not going to happen. But if you look at his history, the more he gets to the line, the better he shoots. He shoots 50% in the regular season because he's not getting to the line enough. In the playoffs the last few years, he's been a 70, 72, 73% free throw shooter. But I want to see those attempts. I'd rather see Rondo go, go 8 of 13 from the line than 1 for 2. it doesn't matter how many he misses to me. I want to see him getting there. I want to see him getting other guys in foul trouble. And the more free throws he attempts, the more he will make. And it's just a trickle-down effect for the whole team. I think the beauty of Rondo is he has the things you can't teach. And he doesn't have the things that you can that get better over time. Players become better shooters as their careers go along.
Do you see Mike D'Antoni, the head coach of the New York Knicks, going to a 1-on-1 against Ray Allen? Because last night when they were down, I'm thinking, oh my God, Ray Allen's getting this shot. It's going to be a spitting image of what happened in Game 1 where he hit the 3 at the end.
Well, Ray's 7 of 9 shooting threes.
Oh, he's phenomenal.
Of the series. Yeah, and it's amazing. He's really done it all year. You shake your head. It tells you a lot about Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, and the other elements the Celtics have. That Ray Allen can have so many open looks. There's another part to that. Ray, when you're a great three-point shooter, of course you can shoot the ball, but you also know how to get open, as he does, as he has done better than anybody, obviously, in the history of the NBA. But the Knicks are not, you have Landry Fields as a younger player chasing around. He's a rookie. He's had a really good rookie year, but that's asking a lot. Traditionally, everyone talks about point guards having difficulty adjusting when they first come into the NBA. Nobody ever talks about shooting guards. Toronto, a couple of years ago, they went with DeMar DeRozan as a rookie shooting guard, and they have a great deal of difficulty catching up to these veteran shooters. It takes you 3 or 4 years to become like a Thabo Sefolosha in Oklahoma, where you really finally start to get it. Tony Allen's a good example of that. It took him 4 or 5 years in the league to become a good defender, be able to chase guys through screens. So it's an inherent advantage. You week in New York, taking Chauncey out, Tony Douglas moves into the starting lineup, and it gets thinner and thinner. And with the Celtics, when they're at their best, they should be a team that's pick your poison. Who are you going to defend? You're going to defend Paul Pierce, you're going to defend Rondo, you're going to defend Ray, you're going to defend Garnett, because the Knicks don't have enough personnel to defend everybody.
We're here at the Peerless Boiler Studio. Z expert Zach Gelb here on Showvio.com talking to Sean Grande. And Sean, Landry Fields hasn't been getting a lot of burn in this series, and Walker didn't have a great game last night either. Why isn't Coach D'Antoni not going with Landry Fields, who had a great rookie year?
Playoff experience. It's pretty significant. The game, it changes out there. I mean, Landry Fields had a very productive rookie year, but you saw the big lights went on in Game 1 of the playoffs, and all of a sudden you're in a brand new world. I'll never forget talking to Antoine Walker after his first playoff game. He had been in the league for, it was his 6th year, I think, in the NBA, and of course he had never been in the playoffs. And we had him on right after the game. In the old days, the players would come right there courtside with us, and they put the headphones on. I'll never forget the look in his eye, because he had just been through an experience that he had never been through before. Everything goes faster. Everything is more physical. And I think Landry Fields will be better as the series goes along. But not only is he making his playoff debut, not only is he on the road, not only is he in the spotlight, who does he have to chase around that's getting in his head? It's the greatest three-point shooter in the history of the NBA. So I think, take a lot for granted with a rookie when he has a solid year and you become dependent on him. But remember the trade the Knicks made to get Carmelo Anthony. They gave up a lot of pieces. You could argue they'd be a better playoff team this year if they hadn't made the trade. It was a no-brainer trade to make, but they might be better suited if they had a tougher guard closer to his prime like Raymond Felton to play a lot of minutes than they do having to play Tony Douglas in that spot. So, and Landry Fields is a great example of that. He'll be better as the series goes on.
Any chance Shaq gets back for this series?
It's funny, Zach. So many people last week were tweeting and saying, Shaq's coming back for Game 1. And I kind of rolled my eyes like, really? I mean, I would be surprised. If he plays a little bit in this series, that wouldn't surprise me, but I had no expectation he was going to play. Remember, he suffered a calf injury, and everyone thought he'd be back for the first game of the playoffs, I think, because they wanted him to be. Not realizing that Kevin Garnett missed 3 weeks, and Von Wafer missed 4 weeks with a calf injury, and those are obviously players who are younger and more athletic and aren't carrying as much weight and aren't as prone to injury. So that I thought was pretty significant. I thought it was pretty unrealistic. And the bigger picture is that the Celtics can't beat the Knicks in a 7-game series without Shaq, then you wonder what their chances are in the big picture. You're going to need Shaq against Miami. You're going to need Shaq if you get to Chicago, and you'll certainly need him if you see the Lakers in the finals. But you need Shaq to be healthy, and to me that means he knows what he has to do to get ready. He's not the kind of player that needs to play warm-up games or things like that. So if when he's ready to play, he's ready to play, and the Celtics will need him in round 2.
My thought process going into this series, once I heard Shaq wasn't going to be able to play in Game 1, was the Celtics have enough guys on their bench, whether it's Nenad Krisic, whether it's Jermaine O'Neal, whether it's Big Baby, to get by in the first round. Whether you give Big Baby 20 minutes, you give Krisic 10 minutes, Jermaine O'Neal 10 minutes, but then Nenad hasn't been playing in this series. Why isn't Doc going to the big man?
Well, you get a short leash in the playoffs, and if you're not looking strong when you first get out there, you're coming out because you're not managing minutes the same way you are. And the other side of that coin, the same managing minutes that you are in the regular season, the other side of that coin is Jermaine O'Neal was phenomenal in Game 1, and we forget. But not only was he a 2010 guy for years in Indiana, I know he has made his bones as an all-star, and his legacy is all set as an elite player in the NBA over many years playing for Indiana. But he has, like Paul Pierce did, and like others have when they've come to this championship caliber team, changed his game. He's not trying to get 20 and 10 anymore. His job is to be a defender, to block shots, to take charges, and he's done that very well. It's funny, he chose to play a week ago Monday in Washington, and what we thought was a meaningless game against the Wizards. It was the second night of back. He went to Doc Rivers and said, I want to play. I need this game to help myself get ready. And it paid huge dividends because as Tony Allen saved the Celtics bacon, saved it in Game 1 against Miami last year, Jermaine O'Neal is the reason the Celtics won Game 1 this year.
Talk about Lawrence Frank's impact on this coaching staff. He's an assistant coach, but I've never seen such an assistant coach get up in referee's face. It's basically like having a second head coach out there.
Which, as we now know, the Celtics have had for the last couple of years with Tom Thibodeau, and that was a very difficult spot to walk into for Lawrence Frank. First of all, having been a head coach for a number of years and then having to be an assistant again, that takes an adjustment. Obviously, he's a humble guy, and he's a very good coach, and it's been a really good fit to have him. But he was walking into a situation to sort of manage that defense the way Tom Thibodeau has done over the last couple of years. So it was a tough spot, and he's done a great job. So the Celtics issues this year in the second half of the season and even in the playoffs, the first 2 games, haven't been on the defensive side of the ball. The defensive numbers have been great. Celtics were the number 1 scoring defense. They were 3rd, I think, in field goal defense. So all year long, and it helps to have the best defensive player of this generation, Kevin Garnett, anchoring that. But the defense has been very good, and Lawrence Frank was a great save and a great addition. And let's face it, in the bigger picture, we don't know what Doc Rivers is going to choose to do. So it's good to have a head coach on the staff.
We're talking to Sean Grande, Celtics play-by-play voice for Sports Radio 850 WEEI. And Sean, 2 more questions right before we let you go. Heading into Game 3, who do you think will get the majority of the time guarding Ray Allen and Paul Pierce?
I think that Mike D'Antoni will mix it up again. I think you'll see Landry Fields. I think Bill Walker has been a physical presence in this series. I think that's asking an awful lot for him to have to guard Ray Allen. I think Carmelo has done an okay job on Paul Pierce. It's interesting. They're sort of getting each other's heads a little bit. An interesting thing happened last night in Game 2 when Melo started going crazy. There was a period of time, late 3rd, early 4th, where I thought he was actually in the head of Paul Pierce to the point where Paul Pierce started to morph back into the player he was 5 or 6 years ago before he changed his game under Doc Rivers and was more of the isolation scorer, the go-to guy on every possession, which is what Carmelo has been. And that's the most interesting matchup to me. Everybody loves Stoudemire and Garnett, and with good reason. So the most fascinating matchup to me in the series is Pierce and Carmelo Anthony, because I look at Carmelo and I see Paul Pierce 5 or 6 years ago, and the question is he going to be able to do what Paul Pierce did and what guys like Vince Carter and Tracy McGrady and Allen Iverson never did, which take that extraordinary individual talent and morph it into the context of a team.
If you give me one thing the Celtics can improve on heading into Game 3, what would it be?
Easy. That's an easy one. Rebound the basketball on the defensive end. Celtics were last in the league in offensive rebounding. Dead last. And they salvaged Game 1 because they got all those offensive rebounds. You don't need offensive rebounds to win, but you cannot give up offensive rebounds to the Knicks. That's also not a good rebounding team. That means better defense on Carmelo Anthony so guys can stay home. It means more physical boxing out. It means guys like Big Baby and Jeff Green, who had a very slow start to the series, have to be more physical against guys like Jared Jeffries and maybe the unsung hero of this series right now, Ronny Turiaf for New York. It's rebound.
Now, one last thing here on the way out. Your last name is spelled like Grande. Now, when you go to Starbucks, which is a green color, so it's in favor of the Celtics, do they ever get confused with the spelling of your last name and how it's pronounced?
Well, when I order, when they write your name on the cup, I have to make sure I give them the first name, because if they write the last name on the cup, then everything gets confused with the order. It's like, hey, who has the Grande? And then everybody raises their hand. So, these are the little things, these are the burdens that you have to deal with. They come with the notoriety of being the voice of the Celtics. All this confusion at Starbucks.